Cool. Hello, everybody, and thanks for attending the biweekly Cluster API Provider for Azure meeting, which is also known as CAPZ Office Hours. This meeting is being recorded, and we will post it to our YouTube playlist. I'm sharing the screen, but let me post a link in Zoom here to the meeting agenda as well. Oh boy, if I can figure out how to do that.
I can do it. Don't worry about it. I'll put it in.
Thanks. Yeah, anyway. What else? This is a Kubernetes community meeting, so please abide by the code of conduct. We have a link to it in the document there, but basically it boils down to try not to interrupt each other, try to be kind. We try to raise hands here rather than talk over each other, although it's probably not going to be a big issue with only a few of us here. Cool. And please add your name to the attendees section in the meeting agenda and notes document, just so we have a record of who is here. So recurring topics, is anyone here for the first time or newish and wants to just say briefly why you're here and what you're looking to get out of CAPZ? Alrighty. I don't think we have any other recurring topics. So let's go on to the open discussion. First topic is Nader talking about new version of Cert Manager.
Yeah, just an FYI, the next release of Cluster API 039, which is I think coming out in the next week or two, is going to have a new version of Cert Manager. There was a PR that I think is got merged today or is about to was approved or something. There's a link with the PR. It's not supposed to make any difference to us, I don't think, but FYI.
So do we need to sync up with that and use the same version? Or is that just something we inherit? I don't actually remember how that works.
I think we install it as part of our makefile. So we might have to make sure we have the same version.
Yeah.
It's in Tilt, it's in a few places. Yeah, that kind of brings up a kind of corollary to that is like, it would be really awesome if like we had like a versions file or something so that like I've seen a few PRs come through where we update a version of some dependency that isn't like a GoDep and then we have to, change it up in a few places, particularly like CAPI dependencies, stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. Anything else to say about new Cert Manager or the new CAPI release?
It's not out yet. It's going to be 039, so I don't know when it's out.
But we're going to pounce on it, I assume.
I don't think it has any major things. It just has some bug fixes.
Isn't this just a patch update? The big version was already updated, right? This is updating it to 16.1, but it was updated to 16.0 a few weeks ago. But that's still not in our release either. We're still on like 0.11 or something.
Yeah, we're in 0.11.
Yeah.
Right, so CAPI updated to 0.16 in another PR a few weeks ago, but we still don't have that change.
It's not released yet.
No.
I don't think it's part, like what happened after 0.38.
Right, but that PR is like, seems like a small update, but it's actually a way bigger update than that. That's what I meant.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that.
So maybe we should explore, can we jump from 0.11 to 0.16.1 without breaking the world?
It's supposed to not have any breaking changes, is what they said.
That'd be good. Cool. Thanks for taking notes, Cecile. The next one is just something lazy I put in, so maybe we should do the CAPZ roadmap doc first. What do you think?
Up to you. Sure, let's do it.
All right, well, so yeah, let's do that.
So roadmap doc is just so Nader and I were talking, and we were thinking. Right now, we kind of like started planning the milestones like a month ahead of time, and so that's a good thing for us as developers to like see what things we commit to in the next month and what should be like higher priority. But it doesn't really give a good overview to people coming into the repo who are new and are wondering like when can I expect to see this feature coming. And so I think having milestones ahead of time might be a bit more overheads, but maybe we can try something like CAPI is doing, which is having a roadmap document. And the roadmap docs kind of lists per quarter what we expect to get done and the things that are like on our backlog, and mostly like big features, not so much like bug fixes or development improvements, just like the features that would be relevant to users. So I guess this was more like a question. Does anyone have thoughts on the format of that? Like, does a roadmap document sound good? Does anyone have any reasons why they think we should do milestones instead, or any other ideas of how we could do this?
Is this perhaps a, I'm sorry, I should have raised my hand, but is this perhaps a artifact of our like issues not being feature focused enough? Like if we really had features in issues, or maybe something that was a little bit more consumable, would that be enough for milestones? Or do we really actually need to show something more like a longer focus, like multiple quarter kind of roadmap?
I put in the chat an example of what the closed CAPI one is. For me, I think it would be nice to just like see what kind of the thinking or what is like an important thing, or for somebody coming in and like not sure what to work on, if everything in the milestone is already kind of is in progress. It'll be nice to have an idea of what the future is. It's not like a must-have, it's just like nice.
Sorry. I think the sorry, I think the difference between the issues in the repo, like in the issue list, and having this would be more the timing, because issues tell you what, they don't tell you when. And so unless we start like having, we could also have labels on issues like Q1 2020, or I mean Q4 2020, Q1 2021, and like label them. That also works. And I think that actually is better in terms of like keeping things up to date, because I've seen like the document in CAPI getting out of date really quickly when things change in the repo, but we forget to update the doc. But at the same time, the doc is maybe more user friendly because they can just land on it and read it and not have to like go through issues. So.
I mean, is the like milestones have a date on them? Is labeling a feature and a milestone not putting a date on it?
It is. So yeah, that's the other option. We could also do milestones. That works perfectly fine as well.
The doc is nice.
But we would need like a next or like 4x or something like that to make it. Like right now we only have like one milestone that we label with. To do that, I guess we would need like a next or something. I think we have a next. But next is just like anything.
Would we want to then create the next 3 or 4 milestones and then have a next after that? So we're
that would be too much planning though. We don't want to plan all that detail.
Well, but that's kind of what we're saying with the quarterly planning document, right? Or is it, or we don't want to get that fine grained?
Yeah, I guess the idea was just to be more broad and just say like, oh, we expect Windows nodes to land in Q1 2021, you know, things like that, but not like every single thing that we're going to work on. And I guess the risk of doing milestone planning is that then we end up having to triage smaller ones that aren't necessarily, you know, relevant to someone who just wants to know when is this feature going to land.
Yeah. Also, well, I think it's very transparent and it's nice to assign stuff to milestones on GitHub. Potentially you get into discussions about just that with stakeholders. You know, why is this assigned to this milestone? And then that could be a whole discussion of its own, which wastes time. Whereas if it's in the doc, somehow that's looks more final or is more abstract or something like that. Yeah.
David?
Yeah, I agree. I think what we're actually leading towards is what are the things that are big enough boulders that we should put into this backlog? Like some of the smaller like features and issues and stuff like that, those are great in the milestones. But when we're talking about like these bigger things, like what you just said, when is Windows support going to land? There's tons of like dependent, probably like dozens of little features that will probably come in as part of that across multiple projects. So what does that big boulder look like? And maybe this is like an indication of when things start in proposal form, and when they intend on landing and what their progression looks like. So in our proposals, we often will put in there, you know, this thing's going to start off in experimental. After a couple releases, we want it to land into GA. Eventually, or we want this to be a released feature in this release, and we're targeting kind of this quarter or this month, or I don't know what the date is, but it's a big enough chunk that it's going to, you know, we're projecting it out, and we thought it was impactful enough to have a proposal for it. Perhaps that's kind of an indicator for us. I don't know. What do folks think?
Yeah, I agree. I think the point here is we want to focus on the bigger epics and not on the small features, which right now that's what we've been using milestones for. That doesn't mean it has to continue like that, but it doesn't, to me, it doesn't really matter the format of how it's communicated as long as the what is timing of bigger chunks of features. And so we could do milestones and just try to focus on the ones that are like stories, and try to like really keep it to like bigger features, or we could do a document and duplicate that information, like those issue titles, into a doc. I think milestones is lower maintenance maybe for us, but yeah.
I kind of like the doc though. The more we talk about it, the more it makes it consumable. Like it's more targeted for maybe not technical consumption, but more just informational. Like I'm a user of this, not necessarily a contributor, not a maintainer. I'm a user, and I want to have something easily digested so that I can tell, like maybe, you know, my product team, you know, we can. It's, I don't know. Does that make sense? Like more user focused.
It totally does, and that's really how Cecile introduced this whole thing, was someone coming into the project who's not, you know, who's just a user or isn't familiar with it, needs a document. So I think having a simplified doc really should be the focus.
I totally thought you thought that milestones were better, David. So, but I think I agree. Yeah. So let's do a doc then and see how it works. I can work on that and get a PR together. All right, cool.
I just like to
End of
argue both
chapter.
sides.
I saw that. It's okay. I do the same. Okay. Back to you, Matt.
Matt, I think you're muted.
Oh yeah. There's a hotkey for muting yourself on Teams. It's not the same one as Zoom. Now I know both of them. Sorry. Yeah, so I just kind of put this in lazily because I'm assuming, my assumption is always you guys are more plugged into KubeCon and things like that than I am. So, and I know Cecile gave a talk yesterday with Nadir. So anyway, is there anything, are there talks we should go back and watch? Is there any news that came out? I'm just curious.
So from what I know, there are two cluster API talks. There's one that Katie from American Express gave. That was 2 days ago, and hers is more from the perspective of a user, so it's really interesting. So I recommend watching that. It does cover a lot of the basics, so there is some overlap with the one that Nadir and I gave as part of the maintainer track. And so that one is more like how to contribute, and here's how the basics of the project work. So I think both are good introductory talks, but then the American Express one is more like user focused, and then the one we did is more like maintainer focused. And then I know the Windows folks also talked briefly. I haven't watched it yet, but in the description it talked about cluster API, so I'm not really sure. That might be interesting to watch. That's something I'm gonna watch for sure. I don't know if anyone else has any suggestions.
I noticed there was one earlier this morning. I haven't seen it, about Azure Cloud Provider, like a deep dive or something, but it was like super early in the morning, so I was like planning to checking it out.
I'm adding links to the doc, so they're there.
I was still muted. So fun. Well, thanks for the clip notes there. Try and catch up on all those. Do we have anything else to talk about? Anything anyone wants to mention? Go ahead, David.
So, all right, so I started working on a PR to add some machine pool support to the test framework in CAPI. Part of this work is to help us to be able to test machine pools end-to-end in CAPZ. Hopefully this will help others to test machine pools as well. Part of this work, I think I'm going to end up having to build machine pool support into the Docker infrastructure provider. Does anybody know of any ongoing work there, or is this something that just hasn't come up? I'm just curious. Before I go diving in and like start writing stuff, I was just curious if anybody had any experience.
Sorry, I missed that. What was the question at the end?
Has anyone built anything into the Docker infrastructure provider? Like basically, I think I'm going to go add machine pool support into the infrastructure provider so that we can see end-to-end tests passing in CAPI for machine pools. I think this will be a major part of getting machine pools out of experimental And then also helping others to know that the end-to-end tests pass for machine pool.
So I was actually thinking about that recently, and I was wondering, is that possible? Because machine pool relies on the fact that the infrastructure provider has a native support for like a scaling group type object, right? So how are you gonna like simulate that with Docker? What's the abstraction?
Cool. So no, I don't think anything like that needs to actually happen. So if you look at like the Docker infrastructure object behind it, like it's just creating a Docker machine. Like it's just a node that's running, right? So what if like when the machine pool, like the Docker machine pool gets created, it just says, all right, hey, I'm gonna go create me these 2 replicas that I want, because it's really just a machine deployment. So behind the scenes, it could just know itself, hey, this is where my Docker machines are, and I'm okay with it. So we could go as far as to create Docker machine infrastructure custom resources if we wanted to model them as machines and have the machine pool controller be aware of these machines and track them. Or we could just have the machine pool controller create the Docker machines and just keep a reference to them. I'm leaning towards the easy way, where the Docker machine pool controller will actually just keep track of them and clean up after them. But definitely open to suggestions. That also kind of leads into what Jason had brought up before about should these actually be modeled as machines under the covers, or should they actually be modeled as a machine pool? So I don't know. That's kind of, to me, that feels like uneven ground, and I'm not exactly sure how to tread on it.
Yeah, I think easy way sounds good. I'd probably mention it to Fabrizio before starting that work in case there are big objections to that. Because I know he's done a lot of work in the end-to-end test framework. He's usually my go-to person when I have framework questions. But I think the talk about having machines represent like machine pool instances is maybe a bigger discussion, and I don't think we should block end-to-end test on that, because end-to-end test is pretty critical for getting machine pool out of alpha, or out of experimental, sorry.
Cool. Anything else to say about that, David? Nope. Maybe you'll get lucky and someone's actually doing the work already. You never know. If no one else has anything, I guess I wanted to talk really briefly or ask for ideas about the E2E test. So we, I'm sure you're aware we disabled the part of the ELB test, which is really the most important part. Can I connect to the service externally? Because it was failing consistently. And we had so many PRs waiting to make it through the queue that were passing on everything but that test, that we went ahead and tucked our tail between our legs and hid the test. And so I've been trying to figure out what was going wrong, and I'm just unable to reproduce it. It succeeds locally all the time, which is very strange. And it succeeds in our CI system sometimes. We saw yesterday it succeeded once and failed once on the same PR. So I'm just throwing things at the wall, trying to extend the logging as much as possible so that when it fails in our CI system, I get some clues to what's going on. And I have a change I'm putting out there now. But short of that, it seems like it may be an environmental difference between the way I run things locally and what we do in CI. And so basically, I just wanted to update you with that I am working on it. I'm scratching my head because I'm not able to reproduce it, and I'm curious if anybody has any ideas.
Hey, I really like that you're adding a bunch of logging to it. We need to be able to diagnose these things. We're going to come across more flaky issues like this, and if we don't have the logs to diagnose it, we're going to be useless, right? So if there's that's a ton of value. So you mentioned it as in it was kind of like, you were just throwing stuff at the wall and extending logging, but that is huge. That really is going to be monumental, I think, for solving these issues in the future. So thank you.
Yeah. But I actually meant relative to the logging that's in there right now. I'm throwing stuff at the wall in a current PR. Also, I found there was a bit of an issue with closure nesting. And so the thing that we're logging right now is not actually the fully fledged object. So I have some changes to make. But even so, the next thing I'd like to do,
Oh no.
you would do, because I'd like to just do kubectl describe the deployment or the service. But that's not so easy from client Go. Anyway, that's where we're at. If anybody has any ideas, let me know. Do we have any other topics for this meeting? Anything else to bring up?
I think it'd be nice if we could check out the milestone. It's like at the end. Sorry, the recurring topic at the end.
We do that, don't we? Let's see if I can get there. What am I doing?
That's the deprecated one. I can't hear Matt. Is it just me or? Hello?
I think we lost him.
Okay, we lost him. Okay. He's returning.
Hey, internet. I'm back.
You're back.
Should I try share screen again? Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, we didn't hear what you were saying towards the end.
Sorry, I was just wondering if we wanted to go through these one by one or if we wanted to fly over them and people call things out. All right, well, let's look at them quickly. Is this in progress at all?
Yeah, so go ahead, David.
No, please.
Carlos merged a PR to add the service, but it's not actually hooked up to the APIs yet. So it's not done, but it's, yeah, I don't know if he's actually actively working on it, but it's started. We can't hear you. Oh, sorry.
What's that?
I couldn't hear you. I don't know if it's just me, but
Sorry,
you're cutting out. Yeah.
My internet is screwing up.
Audio is barely coming through.
Cecile, do you want to talk instead and I can just share? I'm not sure what's going on with my internet.
Sure. Okay, I don't know if we need to go into each one like individually, but so we're halfway through the milestone. You have 2 weeks left. I think we're kind of in a similar situation as last time where there are a lot of open issues, but all of them are sort of assigned in progress. But a lot of them are bigger than they should be, and so they're probably taking longer than a few weeks. So IPv6 is still in progress. PR is still open. I think I'm going to talk to James about that and see if we can break it down maybe and try to get what he has at least like in like merged so that we can like then have like issues like for what still needs to be done instead of blocking the PR because it keeps needing to be rebased because it's basically touching every file. And then we have the RG. I think that one hasn't started, but it's a small one. Enhancement proposal. David, do you think that's still relevant? Is it still current? What's going on with that?
I would drop it for this one and put it out to you next. And the reason I say that is they're finishing up. The New Zealand team is working on the code generator, and they're really close to having the code generator completed. So I would prefer to drop this out and actually use their generated code for CAPZ Office / Azure Service Operator as the prototype.
Sounds good. What about the proposal, like the idea of having?
Oh, okay. Yes. Let me get the proposal in there. The proposal can stay in there. So this is just going to be the proposal. I'll get that in there. That's good for this milestone.
Okay, cool. All right, Azure CNI. So I have been looking into this one a lot this week, and it's not straightforward. So I don't know if that's going to be done in this milestone. I think I'm considering this milestone as a spike and like research, like what needs to be done, how hard it is, what do we need. There are a few things right now that I'm talking to the team that maintains it about maybe having it as a daemon set so we don't have to install it as a binary, things like that, which might make it easier. David is saying perhaps a proposal. Yes, I think that makes sense, but at this point I'm still at the I don't even know if we want this or how we want it stage. So once we figure that out and I'm like, yes, we want this, then maybe I can write a proposal for it and the how part, but I think that we're not even there yet. How about a why? What do you mean?
So why even have it? Like, it would be really great to have the definition of why do we really want Azure CNI? Like, what extra value is it providing above like Calico X, whatever.
Right, and that's also part of the spike research. I think at this point it was there because it was part of the parity with AKS Engine and AKS, and so that's why. But I haven't seen anyone ask for it using CAPZ so far, so that's also need to look into that. Cool. Okay. Bootstrap failure detection. I will ask Ping Jack about that. I don't know if he's still working on the doc, but I think we wanted to have a doc out soon. And from last time I talked to him, we had a pretty good idea of what we wanted to do, but still have to write it up. And feel free to interrupt if you have questions, by the way. Machines should have accelerated networking enabled. What is that? End-to-end test? Oh, that's the PR. Matt, you have a PR open for that one, right? How close is that to? Is it waiting for review or?
I think it's blocked on the E2E failure I was talking about earlier.
The LB failure?
Yeah. So I mean, if I rebase it now, I think it'll pass because that test isn't included. So I guess I'll do that. It
Okay.
kind of feels like cheating, that's all.
All right, refactor remaining services. So we're actually really close in that one. You can see 14 out of 16. So the skill sets one is open, and then we have two more. They're both in experimental, so they're not like super high priority, but we have agent pools and managed control planes, I think. So I think those two were already assigned to David. I don't know if David, that's too much for this milestone because you're already tracking a few other things. We can push that back to the next milestone. I'm completely okay with that.
I'm sorry, I missed that one. Which one? It was
The refactor for, can you click on the refactor?
Oh, those are the experimental ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So VMSS got there.
Yeah.
When is the milestone close?
September 3rd, so 2 weeks from now.
This
Oh,
might be
September 4th.
optimistic. I still think I can get there. So this week has been a little bit rough. There's been a lot of stuff going on outside of my normal contributions. So I feel. Oh, actually, no. Bump this out to the minutes. I will be out from August 28th till September 7th.
Okay, sounds good.
So I
Yeah.
have vacation coming up. So just if I get to it, it'll be optimistic. I'm hoping to, but
I
I'll be
will
a
do that.
pessimist.
Yeah, no problem. And also, if you don't think you can get to it, feel free to unassign also. That's okay. But no rush on the experimental packages. I think we got the biggest chunk out of the way. And those two are also packages that don't get touched very often. So there's less churn. So that's okay because they won't come in the way of other contributions as much.
Thanks for knocking those out.
Yep. Well, I got a lot of help. So thanks to everyone who helped. Okay, end-to-end test should bring more debug output. That's very current. Matt, I assume that's what you're working on. So
Yeah, I mean, I think we're there, although I just have a few tweaks that I want to make. So we can probably close this in the next day or two.
okay, I'll let you do that once you're done. Nginx test is flaky. Still looking at that. Yes. End-to-end test for availability zones, failure domains. We have a PR open. It's actually really close. I just asked for like a minor change. I'll see if the author responds, but
I know Gav is on vacation, so.
Oh, okay. So should we just
Sounds
merge
good.
it then? Because my request was just, can we move it to a directory, like a data directory, the file. But other than that, the test functionality is all good.
Yeah, I think he's out next week too, so. If we merge it, I can just like make a follow-up to remove that file, I guess.
Okay, yeah, we might just do that then. Cool. Network describer interface. I think we'll leave that in there. Ace was looking at the credentials. He has a PR in progress, I believe. It's just missing some unit tests, which I think was sort of related to this. And yeah, this is like a follow-up to the refactors. Yeah, refactor subscription. Improvements in end-to-end. So I think that one's a bit bigger, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about it, but I haven't gotten there because basically I'm trying to get them to be less flaky. But I have some ideas about how to refactor this. I think there's a good chance. Yeah, I think I'll be able to get to this in the next week. So let's leave it up there.
Okay. Okay, bug. This one is actually not assigned. Running a workload takes 15 minutes with single control plane. And I believe this was linked to a cloud provider issue. I don't think anyone here was involved in looking at it though. So we should follow up and see what the action is on that.
I thought this might be is this a cloud provider one, or is this the one that was related to the watches?
This is cloud provider. That's not the machine pool one was related to the watches. That one's closed already. This one is, I think, a caching issue in cloud provider. Yeah. Okay, I'll follow up on that. I think we should
Also,
keep it in here.
is this something that you might be running into, Matt, with the load balancer?
Sorry, I should just stay unmuted. Yeah, the 15 minutes thing is very suspicious. It could be similar.
Yeah, so
Could be.
maybe that would be a good tangential issue to look into, Matt, to it, or at least like eliminate like the possibility that it is related.
Are we getting the cloud provider logs in test? That
No.
might be a good thing to dump. The cloud provider logs would probably, we might see this issue sprouting from there.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah, sort of related to that, and not really about this specifically, but in general, whenever adding any new dumping of logs in Crowd, just make sure that you run it locally first and that there are no secrets, or that if the secrets are there, that they're being redacted. They should be, but just making sure, because yeah. Okay. All right. Speed up end to end. I don't know if that's really. I think this is more of a follow up to improving end to end. I don't think we should work on like improving the parallelism if we're going to refactor the tests. So maybe we should either put that in next or put that in like as related to the other one. What do you think, Matt?
I agree. Make
You
it
agree?
faster make it faster once we like the way, once it's more reliable and once we like the organization.
Okay. I'll just put it in next then. Oh, I just wrote next. It's milestone next. And then what was the one that was, well, there are a few others. Yeah. Oh, Nader, the route table thing. We're still working on that, right?
I think the PR is there. It's ready to be looked at.
Cool. So we'll review.
Yeah, I think it's ready for review.
Awesome. And then last one is failure domains.
Yeah, this has been sitting for a while. I don't know what the right way to, should we like add to it or like.
Oh, we actually
Close
have
it
the
and
PR author in here. Jose,
Oh, yeah?
you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, sorry, I was on holiday for the last couple of weeks, but my plan was to continue on that work. I think the PR is close to being ready.
Yeah.
So yeah, my plan is to continue the work on that and see if we can get it merged.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. So let's leave that in the milestone then.
Thank you.
Cool. I think that's it. Is there anything that isn't in here that should be in here that anyone is like working on as P0 or no? Cool. Back to you, Matt, if you still have internet.
Yeah, who knows? I think that's it as far as our agenda. Anything else anybody wants to mention?
A little side note about the performance improvements in ETE. I really like the way that CAPZ's tests are structured with the like spec builds a cluster and then tests underneath it. I think that's kind of the way that we could go. I kind of like that right now. That's what I'm leaning towards. If others have strong opinions as them to the issue, but it seems the structure seems to make sense, and the way that they have the template set up to build the infrastructure out and focus how it respects focus seems to feel right. I would love to hear other opinions on it, and the quicker that we can execute tests, the better, right? So
Yeah, that's the general direction we're hoping to go when we get to refactoring the CAPZ tests. All right, let's call it a Thursday. Thanks everybody for showing up, and we'll see you on September 3rd.
Good to see everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye, thanks.
Bye.
Good day.
Bye. You too.